Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Brenda Meller with Miller Marketing. Hey, I'm having a little bit of a hiccuping thing happening this morning. So what I'm doing right now is I'm pulling a link from StreamYard, and I have to, I'm pulling it from YouTube, and I am posting it on LinkedIn. So give me just a second here, Ken, as we do this, and then we'll kick off our regular introduction. I'm going to reach out to my friends at StreamYard after we're done here today, and just let them know I'm not crazy about the new feature that they added in. So I'm just going to say, watch us live on YouTube, and I'm going to drop the link on LinkedIn right now. And I'm redirecting our audience to go onto the YouTube. So I'm going to vamp for a second or two here, Ken, to allow them to catch up with us. Okay.
And I'm very impressed, Brenda. Whatever you're doing, I'm impressed.
But this is what it's about. So I use StreamYard for the streaming server. They're adding in enhancements all the time. And one of the enhancements they recently put into place was you can now schedule this to go on LinkedIn, whereas in the past, it was just, it went live without a pre-post. So now they're allowing us the ability to pre-post, hey, I'm going to be going live. And I accidentally used the link for your call with another call this week. So I had to do a little bit of shuffling behind the scenes. But now we are live this morning. Right now, we are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. And what I did, Ken, is I grabbed the YouTube link and I posted that on LinkedIn. So I'm going to give everyone just a second to find us on here. And if you are watching, could you do me a favor? Thank you for your patience, first of all. Leave a comment below. Let us know that you're watching the show. And as soon as I see our first comment coming up from someone on YouTube, I will know that the folks on LinkedIn are aware of where we're at. So we're going to give it just a second here, Ken, to wait while that happens. Now, I'm curious, Ken, what do you have as your morning beverage of choice? I have Girl Boss Fuel, which is coffee. It's getting a little bit low in my cup. How about you?
I am an iced coffee person year-round. I used to be able to drink coffee, hot or cold, right up till bedtime. As I've gotten more mature, we'll say.
Mature, yes.
I got to finish by any minute now, otherwise I'll be up all night.
Yeah. See, I have my cutoff. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Anything past that for me, it's like I'll fall asleep and then I will wake up anxious, like something's going to happen. Like, I don't know what it is. Okay, I see Cyril found the link. So I think we're good to go. I'm going to post it in one other place, which is I have an event, and I'll just say LinkedIn is hiccuping. Join us on YouTube. This is what I do, guys. I never have mistakes. I have learning experiences. I just had a learning experience today, which was that StreamYard changed something in their navigation. And now we can no longer, as live streamers, we can no longer just put a post about LinkedIn. It has to be pre-scheduled. And they're asking us to have it at least an hour in advance. I don't know what that's all about there. I'm guessing it has something to do with the conversations that the folks at StreamYard are having with the conversations of the people at LinkedIn. It's beyond my pay grade, so to speak. So I'm just vamping here a little bit. And I just posted this on the Meller Marketing event page and on the Brenda Meller event page. And guess what is now happening? This is actually wonderful. We are blowing up on YouTube, my friend Ken. We've got Joy who's joining us. Shauna's found us. So people are finding us. So this is what we do. And this is one of the benefits of being experience rich, right, Ken? Not young and inexperienced, not old and facing age discrimination. But when you are experience rich, you can figure out little workarounds. So little segue there. So Ken, good morning, my friend. And I think we've chatted before, like in a webinar. It's our first time really having a chance to get to know each other one-to-one today. So while we're bringing up the other comments, welcoming people in, Ken, why don't you take a few minutes, tell us a little bit about who you are, what's your business all about, and then we'll get our conversation started.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Brenda. I am thrilled to be here, that's for sure. One thing I learned recently is that not just anybody can get on LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and it's only people that bring value to the audience. So obviously you're doing that, and I'm glad to be a part of that. So thank you. So I have, my experience is based in 25 years at Johnson & Johnson, where I had multiple leadership roles: sales leadership, marketing leadership. I led the sales recruiting department, which is where I really learned about recruiting and how to place people and what it looks like to be a attractive candidate. And I also led 3 different sales training and leadership development teams at Johnson & Johnson. And J&J, besides Band-Aids and baby powder and an occasional lawsuit, is known for leadership development. And I feel very fortunate that I got it growing up in the company. And then I led teams where we designed, developed, and delivered leadership training to different levels of J&J. And part of that training, besides the nuts and bolts of strategic thinking and planning and tactical execution, is about coaching and delivering feedback to people. Unfortunately, after 25 years, at 52 years old, I was laid off. Ran into a general manager who he and I just weren't on the same page, and he let me know that very clearly early on. And at 52, I found myself walking out of the HR department office unemployed. And frankly, the only word I use to describe it is devastated.
Yeah.
I was 52. I saw retirement. It was right there. I could reach out and grab it.
You could touch it already. It was so close, right?
Oh, so close, Brenda. And with hitting 55 at J&J comes certain benefits through your retirement, and I wasn't getting those. And the ride home was the longest ride I ever took, having to tell my family about it. And I do a lot of speaking too, Brenda, and I like to share that fact that it knocked me on my butt. I felt like I was looking into this black hole of despair that if I fell into it, I may never come out. And I'm not ashamed to say, and in fact, I think it's important to share with people that it drove me to therapy. I went to a therapist to help me through it. I got on pharmaceuticals, antidepressants to help me through it. Frankly, the part I'm not so proud on, I went on a little bender at my brother-in-law's apartment in New York City for a weekend and woke up hungover, realizing that this is not going to get me to where I want to get to. And I was fortunate enough to be able to figure it out, and I landed 3 new jobs while I was still in my 50s. And that's why I think being able to talk to other people too about how do you get through the difficulty of losing a job at any age, and then specifically when you're mid to late career. I've been there and done that, so to speak. And I'm happy to say that I came out on the other side, and now I'm able to share that with other people.
I think that it's so awesome that you're sharing your story, and it is such an emotional process going through a career transition, not by choice. And I've heard it called different things. You're unemployed, you're laid off, you're let go, all of these negative sounding terms. And somebody recently was saying to me, I was forced to re-enter the job market, which reminded me of like somebody who's divorced that said I was forced to start dating all over again, but forced to re-enter the job market, not by choice, and you're not thinking it's going to happen. But I love that you're sharing a little bit of that backstory, because it's such a great segue for the topic for today. And if you're just joining us, we are live streaming right now on Facebook and YouTube, and I've redirected people from LinkedIn because the LinkedIn link wasn't working. It may start at 10:40. I don't know. It's a little bit of a hiccup thing this morning. But at any rate, we're having a great conversation today about overcoming age discrimination in your job search. And Ken gave us a little bit of his backstory. So leading up into this topic, I imagine, Ken, you're encountering a lot of people lately that are reaching out to you because of what's happening with the economy with COVID, right? They're being let go from their jobs, devastated emotionally, psychologically, on so many levels. And they may be at that 50 plus age mark as well, and starting to feel like, wait a minute, I've dedicated my life to this company, to this industry. I've done all these things. This is a part of my family, and you're telling me I'm not part of it anymore. What's your first piece of advice for people there might be people who are newly becoming this job seeker status again? What's your first piece of advice for people that are kind of in that realm?
Yeah, boy, you definitely nailed that description of what do you mean you don't want me anymore? Because a young person like you to recognize that's something that's in there that people don't always see. It's just you're unemployed. What about it? And I think the first thing you have to do is get your head right about that. And they say it's nothing personal, it's just business. Well,
oh, it's personal. It's
yeah,
personal to me. It's personal to
exactly.
my family. It's personal to my friends who were my coworkers. It's not personal
Yeah.
to you.
There's no question about it. It's very personal. So,
Yeah.
but still, what you have to do is also separate it to say that it has nothing to do with my performance or the value of who I am as a person and what I have to bring to that company. And what I often say to people is sometimes you do need to have to remind yourself of that. When I was out and down, one of the things I did was I literally wrote down all the successes, or as many as I could think of, that I'd had in the past. The successful projects, the teams I've been on, the recognition I received, the promotions I got, to remind myself that, wow, I do have a lot to offer. I have helped a lot of people and a lot of the companies I've worked for. And this is just a moment in time. And people typically mid to late career, 50 plus, as you mentioned, they have a track record of a tenure with one or multiple companies. And they wouldn't have that long career if they weren't successful. So I would say the first thing you need to do is remind yourself of the value and write down a list of all your successes. So that, and I used to actually carry it around with me. And there were times when I was feeling it, I would pull it out and read it and remind myself, yes, this is who I am. Being unemployed, I would say to everybody watching, it's a blip on the professional radar screen. It's something that you'll look back on, and it's just a minor detour to get you to where you need to be.
If I could add on to that too, Ken, I mean, some people are list writers naturally, and some people might be like, oh, a list that feels overwhelming. Here's my little thing. Grab a little stick of these Post-it notes, and every time you think one thing that you deem a success in your career, write it on a Post-it note and then start putting those Post-it notes on a wall or a desk or something.
Yeah.
Inside your bathroom cabinet, when you open it up in the morning, you'll look at those and it'll give you that positive reinforcement, right?
Yes, yeah, and I think that's a great point too, because everybody's different. Some people, that's Pollyanna, I'm not going to write a list. Whatever you need to do to remind yourself of the value you have to bring. The other benefit, by the way, of doing what you're describing or what I described is that as you prepare for interviews, you're going to need that information anyway. So it serves two purposes. One, to reinforce and remind you of the value you have to bring, and two, it begins the preparation for those interviews you're going to be going on.
That's a good point too, because you have to get into that mental mindset to get into interviewing, and when you're in that emotional phase, you have to go through that too. You have to feel the emotions, right, Ken? I mean, you can't block them out. You can't cover them with alcohol or any other vice. So you got to work through them and then come out on the other side healthy. But then you got to get into an interview not feeling deflated, devastated. You have to come through with, sitting a little bit taller, right?
Yes.
And feeling a sense of pride of what you've done and enthusiasm for joining the role, not kind of camera shy coming into that, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. There's a great TED Talk by Amy Cuddy, Cuddy. I don't know if you've seen it, or if anybody watching, you've not seen it, look it up. It's one of the most watched TED Talks. And she talks about power poses. And she talks about the fact that your body language and what you just described, it not only impacts the people you're talking to. We all know that if somebody's talking to you like this, they're closed off to what you're hearing, but it actually impacts yourself. And she did studies to show the effect on your hormone levels that your body language has on you. And you could actually affect that by having a good, like you say, strong, open pose and posture. Yes. And that comes across in, it presents you as a positive, confident person.
Yeah. Great. So if you guys are just joining, we're having a conversation today about overcoming age discrimination in your job search. And does it happen? Is age discrimination a real thing? Is it something we think? I mean, what are your thoughts on that, and how do we overcome it?
Okay, I would say yes to that question. It is definitely a real thing, but it is not the only thing. The reality is, Brenda, that there is age discrimination out there, and there's sexism out there, and there's racism out there. And in fact, regarding age discrimination, it happens on the top end of people who are older, but it also happens on the bottom end. I'm always shocked at how maligned the millennials are. Just for being of that age group, they have all this negative stuff attached to them. So there are people out there that are going to discriminate because of any of those things, and you can't let that get in your head. I do have a lot of clients that say, oh, I'm not getting a job because I'm in my 50s. That's not the case. The reality is this: yes, some people might knock you out, but if you're in on an interview, if you get called in on an interview, then as far as I'm concerned, age, sexism, race, all those things are out the window, because they know what you look like. Unless you're one of those people that still has your college picture on your LinkedIn or whatever, right? Right.
I can tell it wasn't even taken in this decade. In this, it was in the 1900s. The photo was taken like in the 80s or something, maybe, but it was not taken in the 2000s in this century. But yeah, I agree with you. If you've got that interview, I mean, they can tell from your resume too. They can tell if you have 10, 20, 30, 40 years of experience. So you've gotten past that, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
And I mentioned earlier, you got to get your head right, and part of that is getting that out of there. Then, so if you're talking to someone, age is not the issue. They've seen your picture, they've seen your resume and work experience. The other thing is that a way to that I really think is important for people of a certain age to present themselves is to show in their experience, show in their resume, in their LinkedIn profile, that they are up to speed, that they are cutting edge, not even just in their profile. And I know, Brenda, and I'll put a plug in for you here, is that if anybody gets the opportunity or sees that you're presenting on LinkedIn, you've got to watch what Brenda says, because how you present yourself on LinkedIn can either show you to be old and out of date, or you're probably not on there at all if you're old and out of date, or it could show that you're embracing technology, you're embracing modern times, and you're communicating that to people. Right. So, another great example, by the way, in the beginning of this, Brenda, you talked about some of the technology challenges we were having. You didn't panic, you embraced it. You showed how you're able to handle it and you're comfortable with it. Now, I'm guessing you're not a computer programmer and you're not an IT person, but you clearly come across as someone that, if you were a 50-plus-year-old person and you demonstrated that in an interview, a video interview, or whatever, age wouldn't be an issue. People wouldn't be thinking, oh, how old? She's old. No, they'd be thinking she's very comfortable.
She handled it, right?
Yeah. And then, so the experiences you put on your resume, in your LinkedIn profile, about any references, even if they're subtle to technology, how you establish, how you use Excel spreadsheets, or how you communicate using some of the technology that's used today. All those things belie age. They throw age out of the question. They show that you're with it, you're current. And then certainly the topics you might talk about on LinkedIn, the comments you make, the things you post, if they are cutting edge, they take the age out of the equation, and it's just about what you know and what you could bring to the table.
Can I add something, an analogy to that? And this is an example I often give people. So it's kind of like if I had a dish of something, and let's just say this is my dish, and I said, Ken, is this milk sour? And I held it out to you. And you're already going in with your nose like a little bit like squinched like that. Versus what if I said, wow, Ken, smell this Greek yogurt. Doesn't this smell fascinating? And I reached it out to you, and you'd be like, and sour milk and yogurt is the same thing, you guys. It's the same thing. It's prepared differently, but it's the same thing. It's milk that is fermented or, starting to go in a different direction. It's the way I orient you to holding it out. So like if I were to say to you, I think I'm too old for this job. I'm not sure if I'm too old or if I say, I'm not sure if I'm too old for this job, if I'm going to be able to keep up, you're going to go into that interviewing situation feeling that way. Versus if you kind of say, gosh, Ken, I appreciate you calling on me. I know that you probably have a lot of candidates who aren't as experience rich as I am, who are just getting started in your career. Now, you're not going to have to worry about my reliability, Ken, because I'm going to show up every day. You're not going to have to worry about hand-holding me and teaching me what to do, because I'm an adult and I worked in the office and I worked in team environments and I understand how organizations work. So I appreciate that you saw that experience in me, even though you were only looking for a candidate with 3 to 5 years of experience. You got someone like me who's got more than that, who's going to bring a lot and hit the ground running in the position. So just that orientation shift, right, in how you set that conversation up. I don't know. I just feel like it's a bit of a mindset shift, but you yourself need to believe it. before you can get into the interviewing situation and have them believe it, because it's got to be inside of you. You have to believe that, right?
Yes. Yeah, you're totally right about that. And I think a lot of times it's easier said than done for people, but it is the fact. Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're correct. So you have to start believing in your own head before you can get that across to other people. You know, one thing too you mentioned that I often talk to people about too is that voice in your head. You know, we all have that voice in our head, and sometimes it's not a very nice voice. And you know, I think it's important that, you know, some people say, well, you just have to push that out and ignore it. And I don't know if that works so much. I guess if it works for you, fine. Personally, I believe you have to bring it out. You have to. I actually, when that voice is really loud in my head, I say the words out loud. I really want to hear what they're saying, what that voice is saying, because usually the negative voice, when it's talking, when I say it out loud, I hear how ridiculous it sounds.
Oh, God,
I'm too old. I'm never going to get a job. Oh, they think I'm old. Oh, I'm not as good as I thought I was. Those are totally false and ridiculous things to say. And if anyone ever said that to me, if you ever said that to me, Brenda, or a friend of mine, another friend said that, of course I would say, no, that is so not true. You know, let's talk about it. Tell me about why you would say that. Tell me about the successes. How did you get to where you are today if you're those things you're saying? So why do we allow ourselves to say it to ourselves, and that we believe that too? So I do believe that we all, there was a book that started, a guy was on this spiritual journey to find himself. The opening line in the book, I'm not going to use the exact word he used, but he said, that voice in my head is a jerk. And then he went on to explain it. And sometimes I think we have to acknowledge that, and then we can push it aside.
I love that philosophy of that voice in your head, because we all have it, that inner dialogue. And I have a friend, Kim Boudreaux Smith, and she calls it the hag in the attic. That little voice that's the little, you know, hag in her attic that's running in her head that says, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, or it's the imposter syndrome. They're going to find you out. You know, you're this whole thing's a sham. And she's like, she shuts down the hag in the attic, and she actually like teaches us to turn to it and say, hey, I got this. Like that hag down, you know, and move on with it. But you've offered some really great tips. So any additional tips for folks that are watching? How do we overcome age discrimination? You talked about having a current LinkedIn profile. You talked about having confidence in yourself. What other advice do you have for people?
Well, I think, you know, it's really in everything. It's how we present ourselves. It's how we dress. It's how we look. Like if you still have what's that haircut with the back, you know, the
mullet?
The mullet. If you still have a mullet, you might want to clean that up. Your email address, if you have an AOL email address, for example.
Or a Hotmail. People don't think about, like, they're like, it still works.
Yeah.
I'm like, but you literally can't go and get an AOL email or a Hotmail email anymore. And it says dated without you even, I mean, yes, it works functionally, but having a Gmail, or would you recommend, Ken, or something else like that?
I think at least Gmail. Gmail would be the standard I would go with, but you could also have your own made up, right? Like Sher at .com or whatever it might be. So you could, and again too, that sends a message of your comfortability with technology, which says you're not old. You get it, right? So I joke when I do a lot of speaking, Brenda, and I always say, if you have AOL, .com, you might as well change it to OLD.com.
Oh, I like that. That's a good reminder.
That's the message you're sending. So it's how you present yourself, how you look, the words you use. Are you speaking currently, or are you speaking in, you know, words that were yesterday? The other thing is, I think that the current employment situation we're in, and it is actually an opportunity for people, and especially for people of a certain age, because you have a chance to talk about how you can be effective in the current work environment, which is still 80% remote.
Right.
So if you approach your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your networking, and your interview and conversations, talking about things that will make you effective in a remote environment, your decision-making ability, your initiative, how innovative you are, how you communicate, how you can work in an environment where you're not in the same office as everyone else, then you're able to call on your experience on how you've done that in the past, and you're addressing the needs of the marketplace today. And if you do that, again, age is out the window, and it's
Yeah.
about you and what you have to bring to the table.
You just made me think of something, Ken, and this was I was having a conversation with someone who is I'm going to use the experience rich term. I'm not going to say mature worker or anything. I was having a conversation with my friend Carolyn this morning, and she's like, I'm never going to be mature. I'm always going to be immature. But I like the term experience rich because that's how I see folks that are in the 50 plus job search market. You are experience rich. So if you are in the experience rich job search, and it was somebody who was having a conversation with an employer, and it was maybe it was the first interview, it was the screening, and they called on this person knowing they were overqualified, quote unquote, but they knew they were experience rich coming into it. So during the interview situation, the interviewee said to the hiring manager or the recruiter, hey, I know you're looking at a lot of candidates for this position. And I know you can't ask questions about family and background, but I want to let you know, one, I'm unemployed, so I'm going to hit the ground running. I'm hungry for work and I need to be back to work. I need to have benefits. I plan on working for at least 5 to 10 more years. So if you hire me, I'm not going to move. I'm not going to move around. You're not going to need to promote me in a year because I'm not a young millennial who is expecting that. I know where I'm at. I want to be a worker at this level for the next 5 to 10 years. 2, my kids are grown and they're out of the house. So my obligations are now to my career. They can't say, do you have children? How will you manage the all these things? But you may be, the person may be interviewing other people who are dealing with, and I myself, we have school age kids, virtual learning, all these other things that we're juggling right now. And, by the way, I'm working, so here you are as a candidate who is not working. You can hit the ground running and you can give your full and undivided attention, and you are experience rich coming into the position. What are your thoughts, Ken, on bringing some of those into the conversation? I don't want to say step on a landmine because then the employer might say, well, I can't hire you because we talked about age. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and I think I really do believe that if you think there's an issue there, you have to bring it out, because if you don't, then when you leave that interview, they're going to draw their own conclusion and come to whatever answer they want. So if you have an opportunity to address something that you think might be holding you back, I think you need to do it. Now, there is some risk involved, like you just said. You might bring up something that they might consider an HR issue that might disqualify you, or it could be that you bring something up that they weren't even thinking about as a possible concern. So you have to be careful and smart about it.
And you gotta have to know the audience too. I think maybe with a smaller corporation or a smaller organization, it might be worth the risk in trying. I don't know. I'm not a career coach, Ken. I dabble because sometimes the conversations I have with people, I'm just kind of throwing ideas out. And I think like in the market that we're in today, especially if you are in the experience rich category, and maybe it's been 4 to 6 months to a year since you last worked, and you're getting to the point you just need a job now. So I don't know. I think it's kind of like I gotta weigh the risks on both sides. If I say this, it might get me out of the running. But what if you were say, just off the record, I know you're interviewing other people who may have other demands outside of the job, like young children and families. I don't have that. This job will be my only focus. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas to see what you think.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You have to know your audience, and I think that you can do it in a way that is emphasizing the benefits of your experience, of what you're bringing to the table. You might say something like, if you may be wondering, like, why would I need someone who has 20 years of experience? Why not look for someone with 5 years experience? Well, let me tell you about some of the things that I'll be able to do for you that maybe someone with less experience wouldn't be able to. And by the way, too, that's one point I'll always stress in interviewing. It's not about you. It's really about what you can do for the hiring manager.
That's true.
So regardless of what you're talking about, I want to get out of the house. I'm looking to contribute more. I don't, whatever it is, it doesn't matter to me. But what I can bring to you, that's what matters.
Yeah.
I also think that one of the things that I'm really big on is having a process in terms of answering interview questions. Some people call it STAR, there's CAR, there's SOAR, there are all these different acronyms. There are really 3 reasons why I like it. One is it allows you to tell a story. Stories are very compelling. Stories are memorable. So you want to be able to tell a story. Having a process allows you to give a situation, tell what you were supposed to do, what actions you took, the results you got. And and the thing that I think is most important about that is connecting it to the job. People talk about STAR, which is situation, task, action, result. I add an S at the end, is so why am I telling you this? And that's where, regardless of your age, but especially if you're experienced, you can say, the reason why I'm giving you that example is because I know in this role, you're going to be faced with a lot of unanticipated situations. And you need someone who has experience, who has handled problems, who has handled change successfully in the past. And this is what I've done my entire career. That's why I think I'd be great for this role.
I love that. I just put that on screen to remind you guys. So this is kind of an interviewing technique. When they ask you a question, use I've heard of the STAR method, but I liked your variation on it. The end asks, so why am I telling you this? So why am I telling you this at the end? And I love your framing of, as a marketer, I always appreciate, like, why does your audience care? You know, we call it the with them, what's in it for me? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't care that you're out of work and that you want to hit the ground running. I care what you're going to do for my company if I hire you in the position. So you're always going to think about that, kind of pull the blinders in a little bit, think about everything through that lens. How is this going to help that person who's interviewing you? How is it going to hire the right person faster? How is it going to get the right person in the role that can deliver on what the expectations are of the job? Mm-hmm. I really like that mindset. So Ken, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to shift us into audience Q&A, if it's okay. We may go a little bit longer. We usually try to end about 10:45, but since we got a little bit of a later start, we might go all the way till 11, if that's okay with you, Ken. I want to be respectful of your schedule.
That's fine. I'm having a great time. I keep going.
Keep going.
One other quick point about that STAR or any process for answering an interview question. Interviewing is stressful. There's no question about it. So you want to, first of all, make sure you're prepared when you come in there, and that preparation builds confidence. Confidence reduces stress. But also, the reason why a process is great is because it kind of puts your answer in a little bit of a box. And I don't know about you, but I know I can get a little rambly when I get stressed out. Yeah. And I've been in interview situations where I've been asked questions and I start answering, and in my head, that voice again is saying, Ken, come back, because I keep digressing. And I've had to, in the worst case scenario, ask, so what was that question again? You don't want to do that. Having a process gives you a beginning and an end to your story, and it keeps you from losing track.
Awesome. Great. So let's thank you for adding, and feel free to jump in too as you're thinking about additional points here too, Ken, as we're running through Q&A. And I'm just going to start pulling in both comments and questions. So if you guys are just watching, we're live streaming this right now on YouTube and on Facebook. I'm going to go on my LinkedIn post and I'll look for questions there. So if it's easier for you to reply there, go there too. But the ones that are on YouTube or Facebook, I can actually show on screen. So here's one for Mindy. And I'm curious what your thoughts on this too, Ken, are. Mindy saying, write down your successes in your profile. So what are your thoughts on putting those in your profile on LinkedIn?
Yes, I think that's so important in your profile, especially in the work experience, but should come out in your about section as well, but also on your resume. You know, the biggest issue I see with LinkedIn and resume from a content point of view is that oftentimes it's just responsibilities, you know, responsible for driving sales in a XYZ territory, or needed to manage a budget and deliver on a forecast annually. That doesn't tell me anything. It tells me what you were supposed to do, but it doesn't tell me how well you did it or whether you even did it at all. Right. So the successes, I think, that Mindy's talking about, yes, the importance of it is saying specifically what was the impact you had? What was the outcome of your efforts? And I always tell people, when you look at the bullet points under a job, for example, an experience, you should see words like resulting in, leading to, with the outcome of, because that not only tells the impact you've had on the job, but it makes it you. You own it now. It's not just the responsibility that anybody else in that role had. It's all about you.
I love it. Great point. So moving on, we have Lynn Williams joining us here, and she's in your fan club. I think many of us are in your fan club, myself included. And she's talking a little bit about the great careers. Is it Philadelphia? Is that PHL? Okay. Yep. And looking forward to seeing you. So are you present? Is this your meeting on Monday? Or is this Lynn's meeting? Or what? Tell us about that.
Well, Lynn Williams is an amazing person. She leads the Philadelphia Area Great Careers Group, but it's also, they recently acquired Beng, B-E-N-G, Business Executives Networking Group.
Okay.
She's helped thousands of people. And if I would look at that website, follow that link to get to it.
Lynn, if you're still watching, could you drop the link in for us and I'll pull it up on screen here a little bit later. We'll continue on with the conversation. But is this open to anybody who is in career transition? Is it free? Do they have to sign up or pay, or how does it work?
Yeah, it is it's a very low cost subscription. I believe it's $35 for a year. Where,
oh, wow, that's not bad. Yeah.
Where there is so much free content in there on everything related to job search. And Lynn is one of those people that just gives and gives and gives to people. And she's great with LinkedIn. She's great with resume. And she has 16 chapters around the Philadelphia area. Although Beng goes more broad than that, but all the programs right now are online. So wherever you're watching this, you can go on to see some of those programs. If you don't have a membership, they're typically $5 or $10 a program. It's a nonprofit, so there are some costs to it, but she keeps it very low. And I do a chapter every second and fourth Monday of the month. I sponsor a chapter meeting.
Awesome. Well, Ken, if you do you post about those on LinkedIn on your activity feed?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. The next time you do that, feel free every time if you want to tag me in it, either in the post or in the comments, and I'll add a comment to help broadcast it to job seekers that are in my network too, because I think what the work that you're doing there is amazing.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'd be happy to do that. Great.
Yeah. So I see a comment coming in from Carol here, 74 and one of the 122 people whose position was eliminated, and she was working in career services. So I think, Carol, there might be a coaching or consulting business in your near future. But I want to just say, right after Carol posted this, hey, look at this. Morris jumped in and said, how can I help? So I think there's something to be said here, Ken, with when you are in career transition, it might feel very humbling. It might feel like you're embarrassed to kind of tell people. But when Carol posted that comment, this was on YouTube, and Morris immediately replied back and said, hey, how can I help? I think that to me is a reminder that it's okay to post these things on LinkedIn and say, this is the industry that I have worked in. This is what I'm passionate about. Unfortunately, my position no longer exists, but I'm eager to learn something new, or I'm open to hearing about new opportunities. And then you'll get people replying back. What are your thoughts on that? Posting that on LinkedIn, Ken, what are your advice for people if they want to post and tell people that they are looking for a new position?
Yeah, I think it's very important to let people know your situation. And Morris is a great networker. He's very well connected. He's always willing to help other people out. And I think people help him out for that very reason as well. But, you know, when I was back in the day, before the tech bubble burst, way back then, and I would be interviewing people, if people were laid off from the company, we would say, boy, there must be something wrong with them. If they were really good, the company would have found a spot for them. Then the tech bubble burst, and you had all these brilliant people on the street, and it was by no fault of their own. And all of a sudden, no, they're just good people we want to grab up. And then there was the recession, same thing. And now there's the pandemic, same thing. Being out of work today is not a reflection of the quality of person or the contributions you have or can make to an organization. And there's no shame to it. We all know somebody who's been laid off or been laid off ourselves. So getting the word out will help you find your next job. The statistics are 75 to 80% of jobs are landed through someone you know. And that's your network, and you might not know them today, or you might not know them very well, but that's probably how you're going to land your job. So you have to let people know about your situation. Yeah.
Good point. And putting it out there too. And in the positive, I think is the thing. It's not putting out there a woe is me post. It's more of a, hey, I'm opening the door for conversations about career opportunities. This is my background. This is what I'm passionate about. And even asking the question, if you're aware of any resources, job seeker groups, virtual meetups, things like that, that I should be aware of, you know, let me know. I mean, there's alternative paths to saying, help me find a job. It's like, help me be aware of opportunities for things that are out there. And I love Lynn, you know, saying you are not overqualified. You are absolutely qualified. You know, right?
Yes, that is true. And I do think that you need to get the word out there, because there's nothing wrong with asking for help either. And people want to help. especially those people who have been in your situation before. They know what it's like. They're going to want to help you.
Yeah, good point. And I'll ask you guys to continue to pop your questions into the chat. You can either go on the LinkedIn post if you're just watching the broadcast there, or if you're on the YouTube, as people are doing right now, or on the YouTube. It makes me sound dated, doesn't it? It's like I'm on the Twitter right now. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, you can leave a comment in the post of the video stream, and I can pull your comment up on screen. So we were talking earlier about email addresses, Ken, and you and I both agree with Hotmail and AOL being dated and that you should have a Gmail instead. Joy is asking, what about a Yahoo email? Where do you think, would you use a Yahoo email for a job seeker, Ken, or what would you recommend?
Well, I guess I would say it's less bad than the others, but I think you had mentioned earlier too, Brenda, that Gmail is probably your best bet.
Yeah.
And then also you can have a personal email address, and it's a subtle message, but it does show that you're technologically savvy. It's funny. I recently did a couple of videos for different people. I do work with this volunteer group called, I'm going to plug them, Philadelphia Futures. It's a mentoring group, and I mentor a couple of kids I did through their high school, and now they're in college. And they asked me to do a quick video for them so they could recruit other mentors. So I sent it over to them, and they were very appreciative, and they thanked me for sharing my technological savvy with them. And I had to laugh, as my kids would, because I have very limited technological ability. But just by having a video on LinkedIn, you could post a video of yourself, a 1-minute video resume of yourself. You can have a website that you could easily put together using something like Wix.com, and there are plenty of others that are just plug and play kind of websites. That doesn't mean you're great at technology, you're not a computer programmer, but when people see that, it takes age out of the question. It says,
that's true.
You're current.
Yeah. And I just learned, I'll say semi-tech savvy, because I can figure my way around, but I'm still like, my teenage son is upstairs from me, and sometimes I'll have issues on my computer. I'll be like, Joshua, come help me. I don't know how to do this. Like, I can't figure this out. But I follow a lot of people who are content creators on LinkedIn. John Esperian is one. He's out of the UK. He does a lot of LinkedIn strategy, and he's always posting videos with captions. And I love to see burned in captions, because a lot of times we listen to videos on mute and we don't see what people are saying. But if you send it to a captioning service, it costs you money. And I use that for videos that I want to spend the money on. But I'm like, if I just want to do a quick 1-minute video, I don't want to spend money to captioning. And John taught me, there is literally an app. I'm just trying to pull it up on my phone here so you guys can see it. It's called Clips. It's the little blue icon. So if you have an iPhone, this is a free video app. It's called Clips. And when you create a video using Clips, it does auto captions. So you can literally do this from your phone with a free service. And the good thing is you can record it, play it back. If you don't like it, delete it, start it all over again. And as a marketer, I have to say our attention span is kind of small. So your video should not be 10 minutes. It should be 1 to 2 minutes. Hi, my name is Brenda Muller. I'm an experienced marketer looking for my next position. I have a background in higher ed and marketing service, blah, blah, blah. So record it. Add the captions in using the clips, play it back, and then if you're happy with it, post it on LinkedIn. And I love your thought there, Ken. If you can demonstrate your use of technology, that overcomes that concern of ageism. Like, oh, she's not keeping up. Well, she's obviously keeping up with the technology because she did a video.
Right.
So I really like that. Someone had asked a question related to this, ageist questions. And some of these may be illegal type of questions. I'm not sure, Ken, but this one from Andrea, how do you get around questions like, when did you graduate? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and you're right. There are illegal questions out there. And you're actually, interestingly enough, I don't think that's an illegal question, but what's strange about it is if you then make your hiring decision based on the answer to that question, that is illegal. So it's kind of an odd thing. I think you can challenge them and say, you're not allowed to ask that. That's illegal, but that's certainly not going to help you in the interview process. So I do think you probably have to, you could respond by saying, oh, I'm a little surprised you'd ask that. Is there any reason in particular you want to know that? And they may give it whatever reason, and then you could say it proudly and confidently. Me, I graduated in 1982, but frankly, that is not really relevant. What is relevant is what I've done since then and my work experience and what I have to bring to this job. I'm really excited to talk to you about that. So if you have to answer it, you have to answer it. And I would say too, if they're going to say, well, you graduated in 1982, then you're too old. What kind of company is that? What else are they going to do that's going to make it really just not a good place to work for you if that's important to them? So
I think with that question too, I like your point of you're trying to figure out what it is that they're trying to get at with that question. And let's just assume they're not trying to figure out how old you are. They're trying to figure out, did you actually earn your degree, right? Because some people put on their LinkedIn profile the college they attended and the degree, but they don't put the years. And I actually, when I'm working with executives, I recommend they take the years out of graduation because that's one of the ways that LinkedIn can identify how old you are. If you don't put your years of graduation, then they can't really identify that. They can kind of because of the years of experience you have in your jobs. But if you take out the year that you graduated college, then they can't. So someone might look at your profile, and even on your resume, if you don't put your date on there, when did you graduate? They may be really just trying to identify, I see that you went to Central Michigan University, but did you actually earn a degree? So I might say that when they say, when did you graduate? You could say, yes, I did earn a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Central Michigan, and I've been working in the industry for many years since then. Does that answer your question? Because I think you're trying to kind of walk that fine line of not creating I don't want to say a hostile conversation, but going towards you're trying to, it's just in negotiation. You want both parties to win. You don't want the person to feel like you're being difficult and, crossing your arms, not answering their questions, but you also don't want to be giving up information that is illegal for them to be asking. What do you think about that, Ken?
Yes, I would totally agree. And there could be a number of reasons. Maybe you don't have all your jobs in there, and they might be saying, well, if your first job is in 2000 or 2005, because often people say you put in 3 jobs more or less, or 15 years plus or minus. So people might not put in what they did 20 or 25 years ago. Maybe they're just trying to think, well, what did you do between college and this first job? That could be it.
Right.
But and they know, they have a general idea how old you are, like you said, based on your work experience, based on your picture and profile and all that. Here's one other thought though too that I do want to point to. Sometimes that question, the age question, can be described as aren't you overqualified for this role?
Right.
And I think that's a really dangerous question, because if we put a poll out to the audience, Brenda, and said, what does that mean? We get, it means you're making too much money. Maybe that's what Morris is saying here. It could mean that you're going to get bored in the job. Could mean you're going to want my job as a hiring manager. Could mean that you're just taking this job till you find something better. So if I answer that question by saying, well, you know what, I've had a great career financially, money is not my driving motivator, I'm willing to take a job for less money if it's fulfilling, blah, blah, blah. But my thought is, you're going to get bored in this job. Why would you want this job? And you didn't answer the question. So I think you kind of referred to this, Brenda, in that you need to ask a clarifying question.
Right.
If they ask, are you overqualified? My first response would be, can you tell me more? What do you mean about that?
What's your concern exactly with that? I'm trying to understand because I want to make sure I'm answering the right way, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point. If you say, oh, that won't they offer you a low salary?
So I think to this point, because I've heard this too, I mean, I think you just addressed it. If they feel like you're overqualified, they feel like you're not going to take what they pay because they feel like they're going to underpay you. Or if you say, hey, I've been out of work for 6 months to a year, I want to hit the ground running. What if they offer you a low salary? So I want to hear your thoughts, Ken, and then I want to add to that too.
Okay. Well, I would say with any salary discussion, you need knowledge is power, right? So you need to go into that job knowing, and you could do that by searching online, salary.com, Indeed, they have salary ranges. So you need to have a range, and you need to know what your bottom line is. What are you willing to accept and not? And if they come at you and you know that job's worth $110,000 to $150,000 a year, and they say, well, you've been out of work for so long, I'm going to offer you 70. Well, you can you can respond to that by saying, well, in the research I did, I saw this range. And, if we're talking in that range, we can continue the discussion. But if that's all you're willing to offer, probably not a good match for us here.
Yeah, good point. So I love your advice. You have to lead with data in that. So what if they say, guys, you're overqualified. I want to just kind of bring you guys in on a conversation. So years ago when I was leading a team, I had an opening for a position. We were looking for somebody with 3 to 5 years of experience. It was a writer position. And the gentleman who applied was a retired communications executive from one of the automotive companies. Well overqualified. He'd been a consultant, a COO, all these other things. And I was like, he applied for this position knowing it was somebody for 3 to 5 years of experience. And I'm sure he's done his homework because he's been around the block. I'm sure he knew what the salary is for the position. I reached out to him out of curiosity and I said, we had a great conversation. And in the phone interview, I said, I have to ask this question. Clearly you're overqualified for the position. I was very impressed with your background though. And that's why I called you. I'm just curious, why do you want this job? And he explained, he was consulting. He didn't want to chase after the business. He missed working in a team environment. He wanted to be a part of that for a while longer. He was going to retire a few years down the line. So he wanted to, at least until then, be a part of a team environment. Money wasn't a driving force, but he said, I expect that you're going to pay me what the budget is for the position. And I know it's going to be a lot lower, but that's not what I want to apply for. And I ended up hiring him. And he was like one of the best hires I've ever had. He worked with us for about 2 years, and then I think he wanted to go down to part-time, and then we ended up needing a full-time. So we kind of agreed to part ways, very, very friendly, in terms of that. But for me, it was like, if there's somebody who's watching, who's thinking about filling a position right now, I just got to give a big plug for experience-rich candidates because gosh, I would have, and I'm so grateful that I hired that person because he had so much experience coming into the position. We were looking for a junior level writer. We got an experienced executive communication person in the position. It was a steal. I mean, what we got this person for working in the role. But I think leading with data with the question, if they say, what are you looking for? That's not really the question. I think you have to answer it and say, I've done my research. I looked up on salary, on pay scale. I've looked at the amount of experience you're looking for your industry. The range is X to Y. I think that you're going to be filling for the position. Is that correct? And if they say, yes, I've done my research. I know what you're going to pay for the role coming in, right?
Yep. Yes. And I think that's exactly the point. And if we're in that range, let's continue talking. And if not, there's no need to waste each other's time, really. The other thing that kind of came through in your what you were just commenting on, Brenda, is being truthful. And I think it's important. I'm very big on trust. I actually have what I call a trust success model. It's like any great model, it's an acronym, right? It stands for transparency, results, understanding, simplify, and team. And I think all those things, being trustworthy, that starts at the beginning. And you have to let people know where you're at. You can't be someone else you're not. You don't want to sell yourself for a position that you're not going to be a good fit for. That's not good. You don't want to start a relationship with someone based on untruths. So you just need to be honest and straightforward in who you are and what you need, what you're looking for, and what you can deliver. And that's how you build a good relationship. And if you get a job that doesn't fit, though, you might say, well, I need the money, Ken. It's easy for you to say. It is, but getting in the wrong job and being in this position 3-6 months from now is probably as bad or worse than not having a job right now.
That's true. Yeah, because then you're going to be in that situation all over again, or maybe in a miserable situation, right? So I'm gonna end us with this one last question, and then we'll do some closing comments too. But I saw a couple of people asking similar type of questions. How do you handle recruiters that are, I'm going to say, experience disadvantaged? Experience, I don't know what the word would be, experience challenged because they don't have a lot of experience yet. Inexperienced, maybe. Younger millennial recruiters or hiring managers that don't know how to see your strengths. Maybe they don't fully understand the position. We'll end with this, Ken. So how do you handle the recruiter or the hiring manager in this situation if you are an experienced rich candidate?
Yeah, it's a great question, because unfortunately, just because you're an interviewer doesn't mean you're a good interviewer or a good recruiter. One of the best programs I took when I was at J&J was how to interview, not as the interviewee, but as the interviewer. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen too often. But this is another opportunity for you to show your experience. So I would suggest a couple things. First of all, go into every interview conversation with what we used to call in sales is a home base. What is the one thing, if nothing else, that you get across to that interviewer that you want to get across? Make sure that you have, whether you call it your elevator speech, your personal brand message, that you get that across, that it's early on, one of the first things you say, and when you're done with that interview, the last thing you say is, just a reminder, if I'm the person who gets this job, this is what you get from me. And then the second thing is you could show your experience by trying to lead the conversation or let them know, one of the things that I think is important for you to know is, or that you may want to make sure you bring to the hiring manager is, so in your answers or in the way you have that conversation, you want to try to lead it, demonstrate your leadership in the conversation, demonstrate your initiative and your confidence by bringing that conversation to where you know it needs to be.
Great point. Thank you for sharing that. And so many, this is like lighting up other questions that are coming in here, Ken. And I want to, I'm also kind of hiding your face a little bit. I apologize. You're going to have to do Wilson from Home Improvement. Remember that guy who had to look over the fence to get over the, right? So I don't know the answer to this, but I'm going to put this up on screen because when I share this video out, I'm going to ask if there's anybody who has a legal background who may want to help us with this. And this might be a future topic, how do we address situations in an interviewing situation where there are illegal questions that are being asked? Because I'm sure this is a whole other topic we can get into. Any initial thoughts on that, Ken, as we finish this conversation today?
Yeah, and I think that it's obviously very sensitive because you're in an interview situation. You don't want it to become a hostile situation,
right?
And if it's something that's getting out beyond the interview, that's a different story. But technically, in terms of your reputation, if a company calls and asks another company you work for about you, they can only say, yes, they worked here and here are the years that they worked there. You can't give any other commentary around that. Within the interview itself, if they're asking you those kind of questions, I would just try to be as diplomatic as possible, maybe ask for those clarifying questions. Why is it that that's important for this role? And again, if it turns out that they're not going to hire you because of that, I think that's probably a good sign that you don't want to be there anyway. And then beyond that, it's hard to prove these things about age discrimination. So you have to either decide whether it's worth. So very quickly, when I left J&J, I had a severance package. They said either sign here and take the severance package, but you have to agree you're not going to pursue any legal approach for age discrimination, or don't sign it, you won't get it, and hopefully you win that lawsuit, which I chose to take the package because it's a very difficult thing to prove.
Yeah, and I'm not a lawyer, so this is not legal advice, but I will share with you guys too. In my experience, it's always best to talk to an attorney before you sign off on any legal document, especially in a situation where you are being pressured to say, sign this or you don't get your severance. You're in an emotional state, and somebody who has a legal background can help to read through that document and ask you questions that can help you to understand, because you might have a case against the employer, and signing off on that severance negates that, is my understanding. So great conversation here today, Ken. I put your LinkedIn URL up on screen for folks. Are you open to connecting with individuals who watch this conversation?
Yes, I absolutely am open to it. And I also would offer to speak to anybody who would like to talk directly about their situation. It would be a complimentary coaching session. I coach as if you're my client. I'm not a heavy sell at all. I need to do better actually to sell harder, but I don't. If after the conversation you want to talk about working together, we can, but if not, I'm sure I can help you to some extent.
Okay, and I'm putting your website up on the screen here too, Ken. Is there anything that you'd like to point out for the experience-rich job seeker who might be watching us today?
Well, there are a couple of free offerings on my website, some brochures that are e-guides. See, brochure, there's an old school word. There's an e-guide, a couple of them that will help you with whether it's my trust success model or other things you can do to be successful in your job search.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'll refer you guys to check out Sher Coaching. Sher Coaching or Share Coaching?
Sure coaching. Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And also to check out Ken on LinkedIn. So as we wrap up the conversation here today, Ken, I just want to say this was such a great chat that we were having here today about overcoming age discrimination in the job search. I know there were so many people that benefited from this information, and I just want to thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Well, thank you. I was really looking forward to this, and it did not disappoint at all. You're a great host at this, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you, sir. And because we had the little bit of a glitch in the beginning, I'm probably going to tap you to come back again in 2021, Ken, maybe sooner rather than later. And maybe we could take another angle of this conversation or some of the work that you're doing, and we could offer some additional insights to folks if that'd be okay with you.
Oh, thank you. That would be, I'd be honored to come back. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Great. And we'll get it live on LinkedIn next time for sure. I'll make sure we get all the kinks worked out in there. Awesome. Okay. So as we finish off, any final comments for the group, Ken? Anything you're working on? Anything you want to promote before we wrap?
No, as I said, I think what I have to offer if people want to talk is just having been there before. I think, talking about it to people, especially if they've been there. I also do think it's important that you have a team behind you. That's the last part of my trust model. One is people that just love you and care about you and will support you when you're down and encourage you when you're up. And the other is have a strong network. As I mentioned, that's probably where you're going to find your next job. So have those teams on your side because it'll help move you forward.
Awesome. Great advice. Thank you, Ken. And I just feel like this was a very uplifting conversation. And I'm hoping this reached somebody who might be feeling a little bit down in the dumps about their situation right now, because this is temporary. You are awesome. You will find another job. You got to believe in yourself. But leaning into resources and finding people like Ken out there who can help you, I think are really going to be one of those keys for success. So as we wrap this up today, I just want to ask you guys for a few favors. One is after you're done watching the video, and you'll have the YouTube link. So can you click to share that with someone in your network? Because you never know when there is somebody who is a mature candidate, experienced rich person who's a job seeker who may benefit from something that Ken shared with us today. So go back and share this video. I asked you to leave a comment below for Ken too. If you thought this conversation was helpful, leave a comment. Let Ken know how awesome he is. I know he's awesome. You know he's awesome. Leave a comment. Tell him he was awesome. I would really appreciate that. And then if you'd like to be notified about my upcoming interview schedule, go to mellermarketing.com/subscribe. You can join my VIP email list. I'll send you about one email a week with updates about my upcoming interviewees. I'm hoping at some point in the future, LinkedIn will make it a little bit easier for us to find the interviews, but I can always share with you the playbacks too, in case you missed it. All right, Ken. So that's it for us today, my friend. What's next on your agenda? What are you doing next here today?
Well, I got one more thing to say too, because you are not a self-promoter, Brenda, but in terms of LinkedIn knowledge and connecting with people where they are so that you can help them advance, no matter whether they feel they're advanced in LinkedIn or not, for your personal or your business, you gotta call this person. She knows what she's talking about. And as for me, I schedule, it's a double-edged sword. It's very full or filling these days because of so many people that are in need. So I know. Yeah. I'll be helping as many people as I can moving forward.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to staying connected with you, Ken, and definitely seeing you online. And like I said, tag me if you're promoting your upcoming events, and I'd be happy to spread the word about them.
I definitely will. Thank you, Brenda. This has been great. I appreciate it.
Agreed. Likewise. All right, guys, stay safe and stay healthy. I'm going to throw my outro video in next. So hang on for just a second here. And then Ken, you and I will talk in the green room a little bit afterwards. All right. So everybody stay safe, stay healthy. And we've got a couple more broadcasts, but I saw a few of you saying Happy Hanukkah. So I want to say Happy Hanukkah to all of those who celebrate, and Happy Holidays to the rest of you. And we'll see you online. Take care.
Okay. Thanks. Bye, everybody.